If you empowered one person that you were leading, and they empowered one person, and that person empowered one person, or 10 people, or 100 people, imagine how much impact you could have.
You cannot see the stars during the day. They're always there, but sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which you simply could not within the light.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we show you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Today, for episode number 466, as I mentioned on the last episode, we have a special episode where we gave a speech at Mass Maritime Academy, the top 10 things that we wish we knew about leadership when we were 21 years old.
So again, no matter what level you're at in life right now, there's always a next level. And one thing that I want to make sure we say here is, prior to listening to the speech, just realize that even though it doesn't feel like it, you actually have a far bigger impact than you realize. And that's a lot about what this is about. If you want to have a bigger impact on others and you want to be a positive influence in other people's life, if you're out there right now listening, you probably have someone close to you who you care about deeply, who's in a dark place, or who isn't taking good care of themselves, or who you wish you could help more. And the only way to do that is to help yourself. And so learn these principles, make better choices, and we hope you enjoy.
We do. At the end of the day, you are a leader. Whether you're running an organization, no matter what, you are the leader of your life. And we talk about that as well. So like Alan said, we hope you will enjoy.
Talk to you soon.
All right. Good evening, everyone. So this is our second session in leadership training for sophomores this semester. It's my distinct honor to have two guests with us that were actually with us last year, Alan and Kevin. I really enjoy their content and what they're trying to do. It's my honor to be able to have them today, and I just hope you guys get a lot out of it. I would encourage you just to get out a paper and pen, or something, be prepared to take some notes, because they're going to definitely lay a lot of good stuff on you. So, Alan and Kevin, go ahead and take it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Wayne. We appreciate you, and we love the fact that we're able to do this virtually and still add as much value as possible. So I am Kevin Palmieri. This is Alan Lazarus, and we are the hosts of Next Level University. Oh, some reverb here. There we go. We're the hosts of Next Level University. We used to be the Hyperconscious Podcast. We just crossed episode number 460. And every single one of our episodes, the main focus is to help people get better. We want to help you get better when it comes to your health, your wealth, your love, your life. Like, at the end of the day, we're all about improvement, and we want to help you improve in leadership today.
So we've got a question up here. A couple things we just want to set the groundwork. First and foremost, thank you so much, Wayne, for having us. And secondly, feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time. And our assistant, Amy, will be able to unmute herself and ask us the questions live. Like, she knows that she can interrupt us anytime throughout this. So we created a framework here. We asked ourselves a simple question. What are the top 10 lessons that we wish we knew at 21? And again, what we're about is this: no matter where you're at, there's always another level, and we want to help you get there. So, Kev, do we want to go into our stories briefly?
We can hammer them quick. Yeah,
okay.
We can hammer them quick.
Okay.
So, I'm 31 years old now. When I was 25, I had, by all outside standards, what any 25-year-old man could want. My girlfriend was a model. I just did a bodybuilding show, so I was in the best shape of my life. I had a high-paying job. I had a brand new sports car. I had a nice apartment. But I was actually really miserable. And that's one of the reasons why I talk about a lot of the things that I'll talk about today, because everybody thought I was successful. Everybody thought I was happy, but I wasn't, okay? So my girlfriend left me. And this is going to be the short version of my story. I won't do the full one just because we have time constrictions. But my girlfriend left me, and for the first time ever, and maybe you guys have experienced this, I had to look in the mirror and admit to myself that I didn't really like who I was. I put so much emphasis into showing off my girlfriend because that gave me significance. When she left, I had to figure out, like, what do I actually think about myself? Okay? I didn't really like myself. I was very insecure. I didn't have any confidence. I really relied on all the external things to make me feel good about myself inside. So after she left me, I got into personal development. I was saying positive affirmations every night before I went to bed. I would say I'm handsome, I'm smart, I'm intelligent, I'm all these things. And I kept saying this one, and this is the one that I really leaned on the most. This year, I will make the most money I've ever made in my entire life. And I was a foreman for a construction company We were traveling up and down the East Coast of the United States. And so the next year, after my girlfriend left me, was the craziest work year of my life. Like, everything I wanted came true. At the end of the year, I had been on the road for 10 months out of the 12 months. Like, crappy hotel to crappy hotel. I was only home on the weekends to do my laundry, maybe see my friends if I was lucky. But that was my life for 10 months. But I didn't care because I was making a lot of money, and that's what I wanted. Excuse me. At the end of the year, I opened up my last pay stub of the year. And my goal was to make $100,000 at 26 years old with no college degree before any of my friends. Little ego there, but that's what I wanted. And I opened up my pay stub, and I did. I made $100,000, and nothing changed. I had that same exact moment of, you put so much emphasis into this external stuff, you're still miserable. You're still insecure. You're still not happy. Yeah, you have money, but money doesn't buy happiness. And I found that out firsthand. So we'll fast forward here a little bit. We'll skip some parts. 2017, very much like the year previous. I'm just on the road, but I'm miserable now because I know that money isn't going to buy me happiness. I started a podcast, and I really loved doing it. And now being on the road took me away from the thing that I liked. I loved podcasting. Like, you don't get to 460 episodes unless you really love it. I love it. It is my identity. It is who I am as a person. I absolutely love it. But me being on the road took away from the podcast. So every week I would leave later and later to go to work. I'd be working in New Jersey. We live in Massachusetts. And I would literally wake up at like 2 in the morning. I would drive 4.5 or 5 hours straight to the job site. I'd work an 8-hour day, and I'd go to the gym. On Friday, I would do the opposite. Like, that was my life, and I was just miserable, and I was miserable. So it's a cold winter morning. It's 5:45, and I'm sitting on the edge of the hotel bed, and I'm pretty sure it was a Red Roof Inn. It was not a nice hotel. And I'm lacing up my work boots, and the best way I can explain it is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one of those was telling me a different story. One is saying you're not good enough. One is saying you're stuck here. One is saying you can never leave this job. You'll never make the same amount of money you're making here. What are your friends going to think? What are your family going to think? And the biggest one, do you really think you could be a successful podcaster? Like, that one was the heaviest one because that's what I really wanted out of life. And in that moment, I genuinely thought the best thing for me would be to end my life, because if I killed myself, I took my problems with me. Now, that is rock bottom. Like, it doesn't get much lower than that. Luckily, I had Alan in my life, and I texted Alan. I told him what I was going through, and he kind of talked me off the ledge, so to speak. And he said, hey, man, you've been doing a lot of growing. You've been doing a lot of exploring. You need to change. Like, you just need a change in your life. And 3 or 4 months later, I left that job. I went full-time into podcasting, into speaking, into coaching. Now we're here, 3 years later, 460 episodes in. And life is really, really good. I'm very happy. I'm very fulfilled. But the point of me telling you that story is not so you can feel bad for me or pity me. I want you to realize that because I did this, you can too. I am nothing special. I have a really hard work ethic, but other than that, I've learned everything along the way. Everything we're going to teach you, or me specifically, is something that I learned. I wasn't born with any of this. If I can do this, it is motivation for you. That means you can do it too.
Powerful. So I'm going to give you the super, super quick version of my story. And again, the reason why we're telling you our stories is because it's really important to know who you're talking to and to understand that right now you're seeing a very polished product. I mean, we started this, in a basement, right? And so now here we are with the studio, and that's great. But all journeys start somewhere. And at one point, we were 21, we were in college, we were 20, 19, 18, and we were lost. And I'm not saying that any of you are lost. You're probably far less lost than Kevin or myself. So I'll tell you my brief story. So when I was 2 years old, I lost something near and dear to my heart. And my father had passed away in a car accident when I was 2. So he was 28 at the time. And while I lost something, I also gained something else. And I think that's a theme you'll see in this training here. But what I lost was something that I'll never get back in a certain regard that still hurts me to this day. But what I gained was I was raised by 2 mothers. So I had an older sister who was 3 years older, and my mom, and they raised me, showered me with love. My mom always taught me that life was about choices. She always had this way of explaining things to me. She said, Alan, you can either be a CEO or you can be a farmer. I'm going to love you either way. But if you aim high and go for CEO, you can wake up one day and decide to be a farmer, whereas you can't necessarily do that the other way around. So fast forward, I'm in the car with her, And we're driving past WPI. My uncle was the track and field coach at the time. He's since passed away, and the track and field is actually named after him. It's Norcross Field. But she said, Alan, you're really smart. Smart people go to WPI. If you go to WPI, you love math, you're an engineer, you can be an engineer, you'll be successful, and you'll have choices. So I go to WPI, and when I get out of WPI with my electrical and computer engineering degree, I go back into corporate, realize that sitting behind a desk wasn't necessarily my thing, because I love people so very much, and hopefully that will become clear. And what we do now is all around that. But what I did is I went back for my MBA, which is a Master's in Business Administration. Then I went into corporate America, did a lot of job hopping, started a little company called Campus Libre for a time, worked at Oz Development, iRobots, Inside Technologies, just a lot of soul searching. Okay, eventually I landed a company called Cognex, and I sold industrial automation equipment for a really A-player company. Their motto is work hard, play hard, and Cognex is a wonderful company, but I used to say work hard, play harder. Okay, now what I haven't told you yet about this story is that I started drinking alcohol when I was 14 years old. And because my older sister hung out with older people, and so her friends were 21 when I was 14, because she's 3 years older than me. So I got exposed to that life very early. Then in high school, I did some of that. College, I was in a fraternity, did a lot of that. And then in sales, that's part of the culture. So I'm 26 years old, and I'm in New Hampshire with my little cousin, and we're driving to a TGI Fridays. And I look down at the GPS, and I look up, and I see the brightest lights I'd ever seen. Now, if you're out there right now, maybe you've had a life or death scenario, maybe you've lost a loved one or a pet, and I can tell you that in this moment, I genuinely thought that this was the end of my life. Like, I actually had that, there's no way I survived this. And it was that crazy, visceral moment of oh my God, this is it. So fortunately, I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat, which I used to call it a tank. It's a very, very compact car, German engineer, it's made out of steel. Both airbags did go off. Me and my cousin were good. His knee was hurt. My face was hurt on the airbag. But circle back, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28. I've seen the pictures of his car. Now, normally in my speeches, I show a picture of my car because it doesn't look very different. And so I'm 26 at the time, really questioning everything. Okay? Just like Kevin had his suicidal moment on the bed in New Jersey, you do not have to wait for a life or death scenario to wake up and start living your dreams. And that's what today is going to be about. And so what I did after that, and I have this simple quote, and then we'll move on here, but it's this: you cannot see the stars during the day. They're always there, but sometimes it takes the darkness to see clearly that which you simply could not within the light. We've all had that emotional night or that emotional time where we're just struggling and we don't know what to do and we're filled with regret or we're lost, but you're in emotional pain and you see something you never saw before. For me, I saw two things. One was a book by Bronnie Ware. The other one was Tony Robbins' TED Talk, and that woke me up. Bronnie Ware wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, and we actually have since interviewed her, and which was awesome because that was honestly 4 years later or so at the beginning of this journey when I was 26. I'm 31 now. And so she worked in hospice for 8 years, and what she realized is that her real job was to listen to people who were terminally ill, not just to take care of them, but to listen, and they all said, I wish. And so now I live by these regrets. I have a flashcard in my pocket. The number one regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And that's a great segue into leadership. But the last thing I'll say is this about my story. I can tell you from personal experience that I don't have an intellectual relationship with death. Okay? All of us are going to die at some point. It may be 6 months from now, 6 years from now. It might be 60 years from now. But what matters is not going to be how or when you die. I can tell you that from experience, hearing the stories of my dad my whole life. It's how you chose to live. Okay? And that's what this training is going to be about. These are the things we wish we knew because I had so much regrets, and so did Kevin. And now we don't have very many regrets, not because we're so great, but because we finally opened ourselves up to these teachings.
Fire.
Thank you, brother.
All right, so to preface this, Alan said this in the beginning, but I'll just reread it just for those who might not have been in here. The question we asked ourselves, what are the 10 lessons that we wish we knew at 21? That is the frame of this for us. So number 1, lead with what's needed. What does that mean? Well, Alan and I were in California. We do a bit of traveling together because we go to networking events and we go interview people. So we've been on the road together. We were in California for a Brendan Burchard event. If you guys don't know Brendan Burchard, he is amazing. I definitely recommend looking him up. But we were there for 7 days, I think. We did 6 podcast interviews. Brendan's event was a 3-day event, and I don't think we missed a single workout. So the reason I'm telling you that is because it was a very packed, stressful week. And Alan and I were driving, and we were having a hard conversation. And we had a little bit of a disagreement about something in one of our characters. I won't go into details because it's way in the past and it's been fixed and beyond that. But we were arguing. And I remember Alan's neck gets really red when he's like fired up. And I said, yo, man, are we good? And he said, yeah, man, we're good. And I said, it doesn't feel like we're good because your neck is like redder than an apple. Okay? What is the point of this? Well, Alan and I were arguing. And instead of continuing to argue, I had to lead with what was needed. What was needed was vulnerability. What was needed was a focus on connection. Okay, so I literally changed the way I was talking to Alan, and I said, like, hey, what's up? Like, what's going on here? Right? What's going on? Why are we having this? Like, we're obviously not on the same page. We pull into the hotel, and Alan and I are just crying. Literally sitting in the car together, crying about why we were thinking the way we were thinking, why we were conditioned in this certain way. Because I led with what was needed, it resolved the situation. Okay? So if you can set the mood for the interaction will be far better. And this is in anything. This is in anything. So imagine if in your relationship you get home and you're overwhelmed, you're super stressed out. You had a long day, okay? Imagine if when you walk in the house, you look at your girlfriend or your boyfriend and you say, hey, just so you know, I've had a really long day. It's been a really stressful day. Like, I just need support. I just need support. You guys know what it's like if somebody has a ton of energy and you don't, how off-putting that can be. If you lead with what is needed, that will help you tremendously. So my question is, as a leader, as a friend, as a parent, if you guys have kids, as a student, how often are you leading with what's needed? And how often are you like matching the mood? If somebody is arguing with you, the best thing you can do to de-escalate the situation is lead with what's needed. And it's usually either vulnerability, for you to listen, for you to say, I understand, for you to apologize, for you to agree. There's always a way to de-escalate the situation. And that is how you lead with what's needed.
How you interact and communicate with other people is going to be what most of these are about at the end of the day, because it's leadership, okay? One thing that I'll say just to add on to this quickly before we move to the next one is Emilia always asks me, where are you at?
Emilia's Alan's girlfriend.
Yeah, my girlfriend. I should probably provide context. So she says, where are you at? And not only, and it's from 0 to 10. Okay, so let's say I had a long day and I'm struggling. I would say 4, and then she'd say, which direction is it moving? Since I'm with her, normally it's moving up. That way we at least go in with an awareness of like, okay, you don't have a full cup right now. I'm not expecting much of you. And that's been absolutely huge. Number 2, vision. Okay, so leadership is predicated on, if you are a leader, it's kind of inherent that you're taking people into a brighter future, and by leading yourself into that brighter future. And you can't really do that if you don't have vision. So we've all hopefully, although you guys are a lot younger than us, the very first of the 18 movies of Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one, Curse of the Black Pearl. There's this one scene that I always talk about where Jack Sparrow's at the helm of the ship, and Orlando Bloom is talking to Mr. Gibbs, and he says, I don't understand. How are we supposed to find an island that no one can find with a compass that doesn't point north? Mr. Gibbs turns to him and says, the compass doesn't point north, but we're not trying to find north, are we? And so if you were holding that compass, I want you to ask yourself, where would that be pointing? That compass that Jack Sparrow has is pointing to your heart's deepest desire. That's why when Orlando Bloom's character holds it, it points to Keira Knightley, and with him, it's the island. So the question I have for you is, like, if you have a dream, that dream in your heart, and you really choose it, okay? Most likely, that's going to be an island that only you know exists. And so what I want you to do is trust your inner compass more. Leaders do this all the time, and it takes tremendous courage, and we're going to talk about that. But I can tell you from experience that I and Kevin, we are sailing to an island that no one else can see. Now, we can try to communicate to our team, for example, Amy, like, this is what we see on the horizon, but it's kind of in our hearts. So when you feel misunderstood, just understand the reason you feel misunderstood is because you see something someone else does not see. Okay, if Kevin and I do a puzzle, it's a 1,000-piece puzzle. Okay, and I see the cover, and Kevin does not.
I don't do puzzles.
I know. And Kevin does not. I'm going to be, how easy is it going to be for me to put the puzzle pieces together? And then he's going to be like, struggling over there, and he might think, oh, it must be nice. Okay, if you don't have a vision for your own brighter future, it's going to be very, very hard for you to lead yourself, and especially to lead others. And so just imagine what your life could be like in 10 years if you create a vision now. At one point, genuinely, this studio was in Kevin's imagination. Get some feedback there. So the question I want you to ask yourself, okay, what is one thing in your life today that at one point was just a dream? Maybe it was to go to Mass Maritime. I bet you at one point that was just a dream, just a thought. Okay, at one point it was Kevin wanted to buy a Subaru WRX. Okay, yeah, maybe that's a small dream, but he made that come true. Why can't you do that with bigger things? Okay, if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, you've already envisioned what maybe, not necessarily, but possibly what their marriage might be like, what it might be like to have kids with them. Okay, why aren't we doing that with our careers more?
And just to touch on what Alan said, this entire presentation that we're doing in front of you guys was a thought. Like, we talked about this at the beginning of COVID, how, all right, we're going to have a next level studio, next level university, and we're going to be able to do virtual events. We've done we have a private mastermind. We've done 26 weeks in a row, right? All that is because we decided, we had a vision that was possible, and then we did what it took to make that vision become true.
And most people didn't know that was why we were doing what we were doing. Just understand that if you are doing something for a vision no one else can see, they're not going to agree with you because they don't know why you're doing it. And sometimes you don't even know why you're doing it. You're just pulled. Go ahead.
No worries. Number 3, the best, most successful leaders have actually failed the most. So when we co-host live events and we host live events, last year we were co-hosting an event. And for those of you who've put on events before, you realize you have to message people and say, hey, we're having an event. This is how much the tickets are. Well, there's only Alan and I. And at the time, we had Amy, who's in the room, and Tiffany, who I don't think is here, on our team. And we literally had a fail-forward competition for who could get rejected the most. Whoever got the most rejections got a $100 Target gift card. Literally, Alan would compile the rejections every week. We would check in, and then whoever had the most got a $100 gift card. Amy got the $100 Amazon gift card. Now, does that suck that she got rejected the most? Maybe, but she also had the most ticket sales. So every no gets you closer to a yes, as long as you're not taking it personally. If you have a growth mindset, you're not going to take these losses as failures. A failure is not final until you quit. We have such a fail-forward culture on our team. If you screw something up, that's okay. As long as you leave the pain, you leave the mistake behind, and you take the lesson with you. That's what's most important. You guys are going to make mistakes. And if you're a good leader, you're going to let the people that you're leading make mistakes. And if you're following a good leader, they're going to do the same for you. So imagine what your life would look like, what your journey to success would look like if you took every small loss as a win, because you realize there's a lesson in there, because there's tons of lessons in there. So are you taking these losses as wins, or are you treating them like they're the last thing you'll ever do? Because failure is not one action. It's not one bad speech. Alan and I will screw something up. We probably already have on this.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Right? We wanted to stream this to Facebook Live. We couldn't do it. We jeffed it. So it happens. But we didn't treat it like it was the end of the world, because it's not. I am guilty of that. I used to do that all the time. So my question is, are you doing that? And do you understand how much that's probably holding you back?
I was talking there's a guy by the name of Tim Grover who wrote a book called Relentless. He was Michael Jordan's personal trainer for 15 years. And I remember I DM'd him on Instagram. I have a flashcard in my pocket with the 6 ways to be relentless. And it was based on his book. And he screenshotted it and shared it with his audience and all that. It was awesome. But I remember learning that Michael Jordan actually took more shots per time on the court and missed than any other player, which I find interesting, because he's arguably the best basketball player to ever live. He tried more than anyone else and was willing to fail more than anyone else. And you've all heard that Nike commercial of I failed and I failed and I failed, and that's why I succeeded. This is a thing We have literally done 460 episodes, and we've screwed something up every single time. The key is to better your best every time. So you do your best, but then you review the episode, and then you better your best. And so whatever it is for you, one failed test, one bad speech, one tough breakup, it is not the end. And the next principle here that I wanted to talk to you about was this thing called the cycle of success. Now, thank you, Wayne, for making sure everyone had, writing utensils out. If you do have pen and paper, this cycle will literally change your life if you really hear what I'm about to say. I'm going to have you draw 2 cycles, okay? So draw a line down the center of the page, and on the left, on the bottom left-hand portion, picture there's going to be 2 circles on either side. The bottom left-hand portion, I want you to put a bubble, and I want you to put the word belief inside of it. Then I want you to put another arrow with a bubble to the upper left part of that. As a matter of fact, I have this over here in the studio. So belief, and then put an arrow to try, and then put an arrow to failure, and then put an arrow to pain, and then put an arrow to new awareness. Again, this is in a circle. And then put an arrow to better decisions, and then put an arrow to better results. Okay. And then connect that back to belief. This is what I call the micro failure for macro success. Okay? So every single one of our episodes, we tried because we believed in it. We failed. We got pain. We got new awareness. We made better decisions next time, which we got better results, which then increased our belief in the mission. Okay, so if you're out there right now, you guys are in college. Okay, think about yourself in high school, when you were a freshman in high school. I want you to think of a terrible decision that you made. Okay, everybody have one? I've got mine.
Yes.
Okay, I was 16. I'm not going to get into it. Okay, our mentor, David Meltzer, says this: there's no one dumber than a high school person. I was the dumbest one. Okay, if you're only 16 years old, you haven't tried enough things and failed enough times to realize that you make bad decisions. So, for example, if you have that in your mind, that bad decision, I bet you would never make that same decision now. And my question for you is, why wouldn't you make that same choice? Because now you have a higher awareness. Okay? That was a failure that raised your awareness, and now you won't do that thing again. Okay? This is how you get wiser with age. You try things, you mess them up, and you get smarter every single time, unless you let fear encapsulate you and you don't try at all. So on the right side of the page, I want you to draw this cycle. No belief. And that arrow goes into no try. Very elementary here. And then that arrow goes into no fail. And that arrow goes into no pain. That arrow goes into no new awareness. And then that arrow goes into no better decisions. And then that arrow goes into no better results. And that leads you to believe in yourself even less. Okay? For me, it was relationships. I didn't have a growth mindset in relationships. Okay? For you, what is the thing? The question I want you to ask yourself is, what is the thing that I don't believe in enough to at least try? And this goes with Kevin's fail forward. So Amy's in the room. 3 years ago, she didn't believe that she could graduate from physical therapy school. And I'm proud to announce that she now, as of today, passed her boards and got, this past weekend, she was at her pinning ceremony. She did it. And at one point, she didn't believe it was possible. And what's interesting is that the last 3 years have been really hard. She felt like she was losing for a lot of that. But she won on the macro because she was willing to fail on the micro, fail forward.
And the thing, too, like the weird thing is, 3 years ago, she might not actually have been capable of doing what she did today. But she was capable of showing up repeatedly enough times to get good enough. Like, that's where the disconnect is, right? Like, are we good enough to be the best speakers in the world right now? No.
Nope.
Are we good enough to give another speech tomorrow? Yes.
Right.
Right? Like, rinse and repeat. If
and
you do
those
that,
two are connected.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you get to the point where you can find a win and take a failure out of it, then you'll always be growing. Even if we do a 10 out of 10, you guys think this is a 10 out of 10, which hopefully you do. But even if we got off here and said that was a 10 out of 10, but what could we have done better? Well, maybe we could have told our stories a little bit better, right? Maybe I could have looked at the camera a little more, whatever it is. So there's always room for improvement, even if you think you did the best you could do.
Fire.
All right. So the best leaders are also the most vulnerable. Okay, vulnerability is like a buzzword. A lot of people are talking about it, but a lot of people still really, really struggle with it. When Alan and I visited Mass Maritime last year, we actually came to that room right there and we gave a speech. And when you're talking about suicide and the fact that you don't feel good enough and the fact that you are insecure about your height, you have to be very vulnerable. Like when I'm telling that to complete strangers, it might look easy because I've done it enough times, but it still takes a level of vulnerability, okay? I had so many of you guys reach out to me on Instagram after and tell me your stories, like some deep stories, some very deep, vulnerable stories. Other people will not open up to you until you open up to them. When I'm vulnerable with you, it automatically shows you that that's okay here. That's okay here. You'll never get judged for that. Why would you get judged? I just told you all of my stuff, so you're safe to do the same. Okay? So imagine how much more connection out of your relationships you could get if you were more vulnerable. Your relationship is only as good as the level of vulnerability. If you can't be authentically yourself, that relationship probably won't succeed because you're always going to be pretending to be somebody that you're not. So my question to you is this. And this might be more for the men, but why are you struggling so much to be vulnerable? Maybe you were raised in a very masculine household where you have to be tough. Rub a little dirt on it, right? Get over it. Boys don't cry. Big girls don't cry. Ask yourself that question. Why am I struggling to be vulnerable? Is it judgment? Is it because I was raised that way? Guys, if you can be more vulnerable, I guarantee your relationships will be better, especially your intimate relationships. Again, Alan and I are both people who go to the gym and we're in the public eye and all that happy jazz, right? But when I'm with my girlfriend, I am vulnerable. I cry in front of my girlfriend routinely. I cry in front of Alan all the time. I've cried on the podcast. Like, it helps you connect and it helps you get closer to yourself too, which is important.
So Kevin was raised by his grandmother and his mother as well. And he didn't get into that in his story, but there's not a coincidence here, right? So he was raised by two women, so was I. So neither one of us had that father figure that, put on any sort of masculine front. I can tell you from experience. I'll just give you a little quick one. So it was probably a few months back, and Emilia had turned over to me and said, "Are you okay? Is everything good?" And I was like, "I'm just tired, babe." And the truth of the matter is I wasn't tired at all. Okay, I was up in my head about all these fears, and when I opened up to her and told her I'm afraid of this, and honestly, I'm kind of afraid of this, and like I'm a little bit insecure about this, we connected, we made love, everything was a million times better. And I can tell you from experience that if you're not able to put down your walls with at least the people that you love, it's always going to... I used to be the guy who had that front of like, look how smart I am, engineering degree. And again, I didn't have bad intentions. I just didn't know how to be vulnerable because I think on some subconscious level, when we were vulnerable, we got hurt. And that might still happen. I think what Kevin said is true. True strength is the willingness to be seen as weak. And the last piece I'll say before we move on here is like, if you see a gazelle that's wounded, it's a vulnerable gazelle, and a lion might kill it and eat it. It's primal why we don't want to be, we want to seem perfect. We want to seem amazing. We want our, that's great. We can be amazing. But if you have to be, and you can't be living in your own truth of like, wow, I am really scared of that thing. I think that being macho is actually avoiding the truth of like, wow, I really do want to overcome this thing. And so being vulnerable has changed my life. Kevin's helped me with that so much.
Can I add a challenge?
Yeah, please.
If you're watching this, and I didn't challenge anybody to do this last time, you guys just messaged me, and I'm forever grateful for that because the opportunity to help somebody is what I live for. I challenge you to DM me or Alan. I am Never Quit Kid on Instagram. Alan is Alazarus, Alazaros 88. Send us a message, audio message, video message, text message. Be vulnerable. Even you doing that is being vulnerable. You're putting yourself out there. That is my challenge to you. I guarantee we will respond. I will send you a video because that is what I do.
It's private. It won't ever be shared publicly. You're completely safe.
It's my challenge, so you take something away from this.
One time I cried in our private Facebook group, and someone said a mean comment because I was reading this story that meant a lot to me, and Kevin had booted him.
Now he lives on Mars.
Yeah, now he lives on Mars. Okay, the next one. This is also a very good syntax here because this is all connected. Okay, so we have a close friend. His name's Eddie Pinero, and we co-hosted an event called Your World Within Live in 2019.
Yeah, it was a year ago last month, I think.
Yeah, a year ago last month. And he and I hit it off. I coached him for a time in fitness, and we were great friends. And this year, we kind of lost touch a bit, ended up texting me and saying that he considered me a bad friend. Okay? This was really hard for me. I ended up like talking to him saying, I don't know why you feel that way. And I honestly said, once I got his perspective, I kind of understand why you feel that way. And I went down to the studio. I talked to Kevin about it because we were podcasting later that day. And I was just crying and weeping because this was a common theme in my life. So I'm extremely strategic. I'm extremely vision-oriented. I am definitely making most of my decisions today based on a brighter future, okay? And I would argue that my friendships probably need more nurturing. And basically what Eddie was trying to tell me is that I don't feel like you care, yet we co-hosted an event. We did all these amazing things together. He has a super successful YouTube channel. And I said, honestly, Eddie, this is not the first time I've gotten that feedback. I totally understand. And when I talked to Kevin, he said, you just haven't learned the lesson yet. And the lesson was simple. Eddie is valuing the friendship for something different. Because in my head, it's like, I helped you do your analytics. I helped you with your YouTube channel. I helped you in fitness, right? That's not why he's there, though. Yeah, maybe I helped him elevate and all that. That's great. But he's there for the quality time and for the friendship and for the relationship. And so now I'm happy to tell you that we actually reconnected with Eddie not long ago. He ended up calling and apologizing and saying, listen, that wasn't right of me and all that stuff. So we drove to 5. And what I mean by that is we came to the center. So the lesson here is simple, and this is what I finally learned. And this is such a huge thing for leadership. On our team calls, we have 5 people. So we have Natalie, Amy, Tiff, Kevin, and myself on those team calls. We all have different goals. We have a similar macro goal, okay? But we're all individuals, right? We have different goals, different values, different behaviors, and different beliefs, okay? We have very synchronistic macro goals, and most of our core values are the same, but in any given moment, people shift in things, and this is a really important point. If I'm looking at this clicker right here, okay, it looks very different to Kevin than it does to me. Kevin can see the buttons, okay? I can't. So I might say, hey, Kevin, there's no buttons on this clicker. And Kevin would say, no, man, I know there's buttons. Okay, I can see them right there. Me and Kevin can go to the same party. Okay, there can be 100 people at this party. And Kevin could have a blast because he wasn't in the one room that had a fight in it. Let's say I saw someone get in a fight, I got elbowed in the face. I'm going to leave that party thinking that party sucked for the rest of my life. That's my perspective. That's my truth. Kevin would say, what do you mean? That was the best party ever, man.
I elbowed somebody in the face.
Right. And so the point I'm making here, though, is you have to look at the truth from multiple perspectives if you actually want to see it. I could not possibly see what's on the other side of that remote unless I asked Kevin, what do you believe? What do you see? Okay, so we call it Drive to 5. But if there's a team of 5 or 15 or 50, you still have to try to get feedback from everybody if you really want to understand the truth. And by the way, you can't make good decisions based on false data. There is no right and wrong. There's only better. And wouldn't it be better if you had everybody's perspective? Couldn't you make a better decision if you had everybody's input? And so the question I want you to ask yourself is, first of all, imagine what your life would be like if you actually dropped your ego and didn't want to be right anymore, but you just wanted to understand. That right there will change your life more than anything, especially in an intimate relationship. Trying to be right is a losing game. Trying to understand is a winning game because when you understand, you build a bridge, you make a connection, and everybody wins. Okay, focus on the relationship, the results will come. The question I want you to ask yourself, where have I tried to be right at the expense of the relationship? And where can I start improving to where I want to find other people's perspectives so that I can become better? The greatest masters are students. Ask a lot of questions, get other people's intake. And then at the end of the day, you do have to make your own decisions, but stay open-minded.
Fire. Number 7, lead beyond yourself. So I have a podcast agency that helps people start shows, and I work with CEOs and entrepreneurs, and I completely run their show. We do all the digital stuff, YouTube, audio editing, all that happy jazz. Okay? One of the people that I actually work with a married couple. And they both work for me, which is amazing. Very unique circumstance. But I actually messaged one of the young lady in this couple. She does the audio editing. And I said, hey, what is your long-term vision? Because I think I remember you saying you wanted to have your own agency. Is that true? And she messaged me back and said, oh my God, that would be amazing. These are my goals. Like, this is what I want. Okay, cool. And Alan just said this, if you focus on the relationship, the results will come. I want to help her at the same time as she's helping me. I want to help her grow her own business while I'm growing my business. That is a win-win. So not only am I helping my clients, think of it this way. My clients who have podcasts are helping the people that are listening. Okay? I'm helping them. The person I'm working with is getting helped by me, and she's also helping me help the people that listen to our show. There's so many levels. So if you're impact driven, you have to see the ability to lead people beyond yourself, beyond your company. The best thing that could happen, and although it would suck in the moment, the best thing that could happen is she starts her own agency and leaves. That means I did a really good job of leading her. I led her to her dream. Like that is one of my goals. So if you focus on the relationship, the results will come. That means you have to care about the people that you're working with or you're leading or you're in class with, or care about the people that you're learning from, because that's going to help them elevate and it's going to help you elevate. So imagine whatever it is you want to do. If you empowered one person that you were leading and they empowered one person, and that person empowered one person or 10 people or 100 people, imagine how much impact you could have. We're coached by David Meltzer, one of the best coaches in the world, one of the best podcasters, one of the best speakers, super successful. Why does he coach us? He always says, you guys are one of my 1,000. You're one of the 1,000 people that can inspire 1,000 people. Is that the right math?
Yep.
Appreciate that.
1,000 times 1,000 times 1,000. It's a billion lives.
That's the reason he works with us, because he sees that potential and he sees that we can lead beyond what he's teaching us. So is there anybody out there who is somebody that you can help achieve their dreams while you're achieving your own? Leadership is such an amazing skill to learn because you can use it anywhere in life, and it always comes back. It always comes back. Literally today, we just changed our name to Next Level University. One of my old clients, I haven't worked with her in like a year. She recorded a video of her 4-year-old son, like asking him what he thought of the name. Literally said, like, what do you think of the name Next Level University? He's like, oh, I like it. That's leadership. I was very good to her. We were a great team. We don't work together anymore, but it's all love. So imagine what your life could be if you did the same thing.
Fire, man. That was a good one. Think about the scenario he just said, the win-win-win-win-win. That's the key. You want to create copacetic relationships. So you've heard of parasitic relationships and copacetic, and I won't spend much time on this, but picture even something as simple as the whale who gets cleaned by the little fish and the fish gets food. You want to make sure that it's like Amy achieved her dreams while working with us. We helped her achieve her dreams. She's helping us achieve ours. It's a win-win scenario. And by the way, if you're in win-lose scenarios, those are the ones you're going to want to get out of. Okay. Number 8. So I want to tell you a quick story about when I was in college. So I went to WPI, as you know, and I was at a fraternity party. It was during my MBA. And I remember it was at Zeta Psi, and I was in the basement, and it was a big party. WPI knows how to do it. And I remember seeing this girl who was absolutely gorgeous. And I had never seen her before, but I really, really wanted to ask her to dance. And so, but I watched her a little bit. I was in the corner with my buddy Manu, and I just saw her rejecting guy after guy after guy. Like literally, like she kept getting asked to dance, and she just kept rejecting guy after guy. And I knew I wanted to ask her to dance, and I said, Manu, like, look at that girl. Look how beautiful she is. Like, I want to ask her to dance. He said, I promise you if you ask her to dance, she will not say no. And I said, what do you mean, man? I just watched her reject, I think it was 7 guys. And he said, I bet you the $2 bill that she will not say no. At the time in college, we had this $2 bill that we all signed, and whoever had it was like, awesome or whatever. And he bet me the $2 bill that she wouldn't say no. I ended up asking her. I ended up dancing with her all that night. I ended up getting her number. We went on a date, first date, second date, third date. I was in that relationship for 5 years. Okay, I lived with her for a time. Like, she changed my life. I changed her life. One courageous moment. And here's the kicker, and this is the problem. If it wasn't for Manu, which, by the way, is important to who's in your corner, do they believe in you enough to have the courage to say, like, you got this? But here's the thing. Would I have ever asked her to dance if it wasn't for Manu betting me the $2 bill? And then what I want you to imagine is like, how many times have you let opportunities slip through your fingers because you were too scared? I often tell the story about how my current girlfriend, Emilia, she had in a relationship on Facebook. And Kevin was like, you should message her. I unsent the DM several times because I didn't want to be that guy, but I didn't see any guys on her profile. And eventually I just said, you know what? I'm just going to send this. True or false? Are you in a relationship? We've been inseparable ever since. One courageous moment. At one point, Amy reached out to me on Snapchat. 3 years later, she's graduating from school when she didn't even believe she could. One courageous moment can change your entire life. And what I want you to ask yourself is, where have you not had the courage to send the DM? Where have you not had the courage to have the tough conversation with your family or with your friend or with your intimate partner? Where have you not had the courage to take that class because you failed it last time or you got a B when you want straight A's? I talked to Wayne a lot before the speech to get to know you guys. He says you're all incredible and that you're all very focused on academics. One thing I want you to focus on is the other stuff beyond academics, especially the networking and relationship building stuff. Because we can tell you from experience, we're 31 years old. We know what makes the difference because we're just old enough. The relationships you build now are going to change everything. And so that's where it takes the most courage to get to know yourself and to get to know the people around you.
Especially on an intimate relationship. Like, when we talk about vulnerability, if you really want a next level partner relationship, whether marriage and kids and a family and a house and all that stuff, like, that is a difficult thing to do. And you're going to have to be courageous, and you're going to have to talk about the things that are bothering you. We've coached a lot of people on relationships. We talk a lot about relationships. We've learned from some amazing people, and that's like the number one bottleneck for most people. If you feel like you're going to be successful at life, I would question, do you feel like you're going to be successful at love? And vice versa. If you know you're going to be successful and married and have kids, are you afraid that you're not going to be successful in your career and finances and impact? You can have both, guys. Like, you can have both. That's why Alan and I came together as a team. I always knew I was going to have an amazing relationship. I've always been pretty good at relationships, other than the story I told you at the beginning. And Alan's always been really good at success. Guys, I didn't have any long-term vision. And Alan didn't know that he could attract his dream partner. Now we both have both, right? So it's definitely doable. And just to circle back, get around the right people, and that's going to help you tremendously as well. All right,
Powerful.
Number 9. We're hammering here.
Yep.
So great leaders do not need to take credit, but they do need to take responsibility. And this is one that can be tough. Alan and I, again, we co-hosted, this is the same event that Amy won the gift card for. We co-hosted an event, okay? I say co-hosted because that's the way it was billed. We should have technically hosted this. We basically did all of the work. We got all the speakers. We had a photographer fly in from Italy, like literally flew in from Italy for us, a buddy. All of our friends came. It was a full thing. It was a full team thing. Amy, Tiffany, like our full team did most of the work. But that's not the point, okay? When we were on the stage at the end, Alan and I said, hey, we want to thank our amazing team. We want to thank every single one of you guys for coming out. We didn't need the credit. I don't need you guys to know in the crowd that, you know what, Alan and I kind of like shouldered the weight of this. You know, Amy and Tiff did more work than a lot of people here who are on the poster. I don't need you guys to know that. But what I do need is to give credit where credit's due. I want to give credit to the people that were there for us, the people that came, the people that supported us, the people that made the calls, the prospecting. Like, we literally spent an entire night at Amy's house sending messages and eating pizza, and Tiffany, the other member of our team, flew in from Kentucky. Like, it was such an amazing opportunity. It was such an amazing thing. If we only focused on the fact that we didn't get credit, it wouldn't have been good, right? It wouldn't have been good. So even if you don't get credit, you should give it. And leaders do that. They take responsibility and then they give credit, because sometimes that's what people need. People need credit to keep going, okay? So imagine if you were so aligned with what you were doing that you didn't even need credit. Like, you didn't even need credit because you were just so happy to do it. I literally, after this, Alan and I will not need any credit. I want you guys to reach out because I want to talk to you. But I don't need anybody to say, like, oh, that was an amazing job. Like, you've improved so much. I'm doing this because I love it. I love it, and I'm impacting. But I will take responsibility if I suck. I promise. I promise. So my question to you guys is, why are you actually doing the things that you're doing in your life? Are you only doing them for credit? I did a video today on my Instagram story about how my girlfriend and I leave little love notes around the house. Okay? I don't even think I've ever told anybody that. But I'm not doing it so I can scratch it off and say like, that's another point. That's another point. I'm not doing it for credit. I'm doing it because I know my girlfriend loves it, and I love my girlfriend, and I want to make her happy. I'm not doing it for credit. That's my responsibility. It's my responsibility to continuously blow her expectations out of the water. That's what I want. It's my job.
The thing is doing things because it's who you aspire to be is a much better reason than for the result. Because a lot of times you're not going to get the result that you wanted. You know, if you are on the golf course, simple analogy, you know, and you're trying to get par and you miss, and you're getting a result regardless. A lot of times you're not going to get the results you want. If you wanted a 100 on the test and you got a 95, are you feeling terrible about yourself, or do you feel good about yourself? The question is, do you feel good about the effort? Do you feel good about the character, the self-discipline, the work ethic? This is something, it's going to be a bold statement, but I think what I'm about to say is the most important if you can really get it, because this honestly kind of sucks in a way to really embody, but if you do it, you'll have the ultimate power over your own future, okay? And again, Kevin and I came from challenging upbringings, and you kind of know that. But here's the thing. The difference between fault and responsibility, okay? It is not our fault that we didn't have a father, but it is our responsibility to make a life out of that. And if you really hear what we're saying, like, that's one thing you learn from interviewing hundreds of people on this podcast is like, oh my goodness, the adversity became the advantage because they just never quit. They just kept going. Okay? And so ownership, extreme ownership, is the following 4 things if you can really get them. Number 1, everything you say is your fault. Everything you do is your fault. I'll say your responsibility. Everything you say is your responsibility. Everything you do is your responsibility. Everything you think is your responsibility. Now, here's the kicker. Okay, everyone gets those first 3, but this 4th one, not a lot of people get. What you do in response to what's done to you is also your responsibility. So if you were beaten as a kid, it is not your fault, but it is your responsibility to do something with that, to heal from those traumas, to break the cycle and make sure you don't beat your children. Okay, I know I'm being hardcore right now, but if you really understand what I just said, it really is up to you. You have a spotless future. No matter how hard your life has been, no matter what you're going through right now, your future is literally spotless. You can start making new choices today that will change your life forever. One choice, Amy going back to school, Kevin texting me when he was on the side of the bed in New Jersey, me asking Courtney to dance. One choice in one moment can change everything. And you have a spotless future. Start making those choices today.
Fire.
Thank you, brother. Is the next one me?
You went off script there.
I did a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can go again. Yeah.
All right, so speaking of that, I felt it. So, I'm probably avoiding the vulnerability of this story.
Let's go.
Let's
do it.
Vulnerability. Okay, so leaders keep the promises they make to themselves because leadership is highly visual. People will not do what you say, they'll do what you do. Okay? So it took me, I often talk about this, it took me 5 years to quit drinking. Okay, so I decided I wanted to quit drinking about 5.5 years ago after that car accident, and it took me so many failing forwards. So I'll give you an example of one of those fail forwards. So my friends Pat and Gina, went to college with them. They're both my close friends. They actually were both people that signed the $2 bill, go figure. They invite me to their wedding. It's in Providence, Rhode Island. We have a blast, okay? It's open bar, gorgeous wedding. All my friends from college, okay? It felt like a college reunion. It was incredible. Such a good time. I'm a little bit socially anxious because I haven't hung out with these people in years, okay? And I'm like, well, it's open bar. I'll just do one. I'm going to have one drink. No big deal. Okay, so I get whiskey on the rocks. 1 turns into 2, 2 turns into 4, 4 turns into 8. And I took a selfie with everybody. I wasn't a belligerent drunk. It wasn't like anything negative necessarily, okay? Now, I'm having fun with everybody, took a selfie with everybody, posted all the photos. Great thing. There ended up being an after party. Then there was an after party in my buddy Manu's room where one person actually came with like an actual trash bag full of beer. They called him
I never get invited to these parties. I don't know what I'm doing.
It's
wrong.
like beer Santa. So I stayed up till 4 a.m. Now, here's the thing, right? The next morning, I'm puking in a toilet, okay? I'm saying bye to everybody. I'm going to a parking garage. And I remember walking in Providence in a cold winter morning. I think it was fall morning. And I remember looking around like, I feel like a homeless person right now. I feel terrible about myself. I let myself down again. I'm super hungover. I feel sick to my stomach. I can't find my car in this parking garage. It's freezing cold. And here I am in my car puking out the side of the door going, Alan, you told yourself you're not going to drink, man. You promised yourself you weren't going to do it. And here you are again. Okay? If you're out there right now, you have a kryptonite. Maybe it's not having the courage to express yourself. Maybe it's alcohol. Maybe it's drugs. Maybe it's marijuana. I don't know what it is. Okay? My kryptonite was alcohol. And I'll tell you what, when I overcame that, it changed everything for me. So imagine what your life will be like when you actually admit your weakness and start keeping the promises you make to yourself. What could your life look like in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, if you actually overcame that thing? Okay? So what's one thing you're going to commit to promising yourself? One of the promises I made to myself recently was that I'm going to exercise every day for the rest of my life. Okay? As long as I'm physically capable. Since the gyms opened back up from COVID, that's when I made that promise. I have not missed a single day. One time I said, Kev, you got to leave, man. I got to do sit-ups because it's late and I got to exercise. What's a promise you can keep to yourself? If you had a friend who broke as many promises to you as you've broken to yourself, how much would you value that friendship? You want self-esteem, which you're going to need to lead others, by the way. You're going to need to keep the promises you make to yourself.
Self-esteem and self-love are connected, like for sure. Like Alan just said, if you keep letting yourself down, you're not going to value yourself. You're not going to want to invest in yourself. It's going to be a lot harder. So that is a master skill. We gave you guys 10. We came with 12 because we always want to over-deliver. We want to promise and over-deliver.
And we have 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Yeah, we're going to hammer them. So good leaders know when to push and they know when to pull. Okay? So a friend and client of mine was going through a really hard time. And she's a business owner. She's an entrepreneur. She started her own business. Well, she was in the stage of the business where you don't make money, that part of the business.
Oh, yeah.
I've been there. I know those feelings very, very well. And I know how you feel, how you act, and how you think when those walls are kind of closing in. So I knew that what she needed from me wasn't me to be a coach. She didn't need me to say, well, you should be prospecting more. You haven't prospected enough. That's why that's happening. No. What she needed was she needed a little bit of a lifeline, right? So David Meltzer teaches this. Think of it as 3 circles. It's like a bullseye, okay? The middle is your comfort zone. The next ring is the learning zone. And the outside ring is the anxiety zone. She was in the anxiety zone, okay? My job is to get her back to the learning zone, almost back to like the comfort zone, where she knows she's supported, and I can teach her something that she can do now. But if I went in there and I was super hard on her and I pushed her and said, look, you're never going to be a good entrepreneur if you can't get through this. Like, you're not resilient enough. You don't have what it takes. She might not. She might quit right there because she doesn't have somebody who believes in her, right? So that's part of being a leader, is knowing what is necessary. I can't reach. Knowing what is necessary. And sometimes that has to do with knowing yourself. If you were down and you feel like you're out, do you really want Kevin or Alan coming in and saying, hey, you're really screwing up? Like, you are really screwing up right now. Or do you want us to come in and say, I know what that's like. I remember I've been there. And this is what I did. This is the book I read. Or this is something that a lot of people don't think of. Like, you might be able to try that. You might be able to try that. So my question to you is, are you catering to what other people need? You have to go to where somebody is to influence them. Okay? If I want to help you up off the ground, I can't be on the top of the stairs. I have to come down, take a knee, grab your hand to lift you up to the next level, right? So if you guys can do that in your life, again, a lot of this, like Alan said, is communication and it's relationship building. But at the end of the day, the best leaders are the best influencers. They are capable of influencing more people to believe something, right? There's a reason Chick-fil-A has better service than McDonald's. They have better leadership. They're both fast food restaurants. They both serve similar things. They just have better leadership. They have higher expectations, right? They have higher standards. So if you can, and Alan's going to give you one extra, but if you can do any of these things, start with one. Literally start with one. We didn't have all these for our entire lives. Like, I learned, there was one I was going to do, but I didn't do it. I literally learned it yesterday. Every day I'm trying to learn, right? And that's what a good leader does also.
Strong work,
Thank you, man.
Strong work. All right, last but not least here, the bonus. Bonus number 2. So I tell this story, and this is a hypothetical story. Imagine there's a 2-year-old and the mother in the park. okay? And the 2-year-old just learned how to crawl. Mother's not paying attention, and the 2-year-old crawls into the street and gets hit by a car, okay? Tragic hypothetical. Now, there's 3 people that have control or influence over this situation. I'll say influence, okay? There's the mother, there's the 2-year-old, and there's the driver of the car, okay? All 3 of those people have influence over what happened. Now, we could argue for days semantics of like, well, was it the mother? Was it the driver? Legality, this, that, and the other thing. Who should have been paying attention? Here's what I know for sure, and I bet you would all agree. It's not the 2-year-old's fault. Here's why. The 2-year-old did not know that cars are dangerous. So all the things that we taught you here today, maybe you didn't know any better. But now you have a higher awareness, okay? The difference between you in high school and you now is you have a higher awareness. You have more experience, you have more knowledge, you have more reflection on that experience, you have more relationships, you have more life, okay? So now you can make better decisions. So my only goal for all of you today is, listen, at the end of the day, it's what I said at top. When you die and how you die is not going to matter. Nobody talks about how my dad died except for me. My whole life I heard stories about John. Okay? They talk about how he chose to live. My mom talks about how Holden had to practically be shut down because 600 people went to his funeral. Okay? Do not underestimate the impact that you can have on other people by being a better leader. Because the thing is like, and I have this written down, the C between the B and the D. I have this plaque in my room. It says, it's what you do in the dash. It's this wooden plaque that I look at every day. And what do I mean by the dash? You know how on someone's tombstone, it shows when they were born and when they die or died? It's what you do in the dash. It's what you do with this life you're given. It's the choices you make. So the C between the B and the D, birth, C is your choices, and then D is your death. Are you going to be proud of the choices you made, or are you going to have regret like Kevin and I did when we almost died? And that's up to you from this moment forward.
So Alan and I said a lot in every single one of these, we said, imagine this, imagine what your life could be. I truly believe that your reality will become the parts of your imagination you hold on to the longest. Guys, we are 2 kids from Uxbridge, Massachusetts, a town maybe you guys have heard of because you're in Mass. Nobody has ever heard of Uxbridge, Massachusetts. And we're out here trying to change the world. But we have such giant imaginations. This studio was imagined. The phone or the laptop or the AirPods that you have in were imagined. The seats that you're sitting in were imagined. Every single thing that is a reality now was once imagined. I want you to use your imagination. And don't listen to the people who tell you to stop unless they have the results you want. Stop listening to people who do not have the results you want. That is my little bit hardcore takeaway.
Mm. There's this Chinese bamboo that for the first 2 years, you have to water it every single day. And then within 5 weeks, it's 200 feet tall. It doesn't break the surface for 2 full years. And then it's 200 feet tall within 2 weeks. Kevin and I were seen as unsuccessful for the longest time. It felt like forever. Okay? We were in a basement. We were in my sister's bedroom before the studio, before the speeches, before all this. You're going to have to, if you're watering a plant that no one else can see, because it's a vision that only you have in your mind, you're going to have to go out there at 5 a.m. every day, water that plant, and everyone else just sees a patch of dirt. What is your patch of dirt that you're watering that eventually they're going to go, holy crap, that's 200 feet tall?